Hey, how's it going, guys? Today I'm going to be running through a cybersecurity lab in the cloud, specifically Azure, where we're going to be creating a Honeynet and operating as a SOC to go ahead and remediate some of the vulnerabilities that we either cause or face. As you can see here, this is kind of like a layout of what we're trying to accomplish in this lab. So we're going to build some virtual machines, a SQL database, Azure Active Directory, and some other resources within Azure. We're going to have bad actors, some simulated and some actual live attackers from all across the world. They're going to be attacking our resources. We're going to generate logs as a result of that. And then we're going to configure a SIM, look at those logs, and from those logs be able to create maps with incidents and alerts. And we're going to be able to see a before and after of before we secure the environment and after we remediate all the vulnerabilities. So without further ado, let's just get started here. I'm going to try to keep this pretty high level, but it is going to be quite a long lab. So first things first, I have an Azure subscription here. You can create one of these for free. You get a $200 free credit when you start, but it's probably better to do pay as you go, as you're not like restricted by the amount of things you could create. But like I said, I'm not going to get too specific. So first things first, we're going to create a virtual machine. We're going to create two virtual machines. We're going to create our Windows machine and our Linux machine, and we're going to put them in the same resource group. So let's create a new resource group here. Let's call it RG Lab. Let's call this one Windows VM. I'm going to put it in East US. That's where I am. This will be Windows. And you want to make sure that this is at least 2 vCPUs. Otherwise, it is painfully slow. But if for some reason you wanted to do that, I guess you could. Then just create an administrator account. I just put lab user and a password that I will remember. And then we check this at the bottom. And then we go to networking. And we're going to create a new subnet. Or virtual net. Okay, so let's just call this lab vnet. Okay, and there we go. Review and create. This will take a couple minutes. We're going to let this fully create. As you can see here, it's 1260 USD per hour. 12 cents. So you could imagine if you have a couple of these running constantly, it will build up. So make sure you complete this lab and then delete all your resources. Don't want to end up with a $300 bill at the end of the month on accident. Okay, so I'm going to let this deploy and I'll be right back once it is done fully. Okay, so I gave that a couple minutes and Windows VM is created. Now we're going to go create our Linux machine. So same thing, virtual machine, create Azure machine, or create virtual machine. We're going to put it in the same resource group, RG Lab. This new one has been created. Don't select that. Let's call this Linux VM. We're going to put it as Ubuntu server. Same thing with the size. And we're going to want to select password here. And same thing, same username, same password. They're not correlated, but it's easier if you use the same thing. And lab VNet, as you can see, make sure that it is in the same VNet. So don't go ahead and create this before the first one is created. So we're going to review and create, and we'll might as well wait. Create that. Okay, so we'll let that deploy. It's going to take a couple minutes. While we're waiting for that, we can get started on our NSGs, which are network security groups. So you want to look that up. And it's essentially a firewall in the cloud. You can learn more about it if you look it up or ask ChatGPT. I'm not really going to get too granular. But we're going to go to inbound security rules and we're going to delete this here. And what we're attempting to do here is make our VMs as vulnerable as possible. You would never do this in the real world, but to gather information, this is what we're doing. So we're just going to make source any, source port ranges any, destination any, and this asterisk here also means any. So we're going to let any inbound traffic be allowed. And there we go. Now we're going to do the same thing, but on the Linux VM. There we are. Inbound security rules. And we're going to do the same thing, delete this, and add our very dangerous rule of allowing any inbound traffic. Okay, cool. So our machines are pretty vulnerable now, especially the Linux one, but our Windows VM, as we could see here, if we type in our command prompt, and let's say we want to ping our VM, we copy the public IP. We're going to see here that the request timed out, which means that our firewall inside the VM is still active. So what we're going to do is remote desktop into the Windows VM. Just search up remote desktop connection. If you're on Mac, it's a little bit different. Just look it up and connect to that. And then we want to put in the lab user credentials that we just made, along with our password. Yes. And we'll give that a second to load up. Okay, and since it's our first time starting this up, it gives us this prompt, all these data collection stuff. I like to turn them off. It seems like it goes a little faster when I do. And then we jump through Microsoft Edge's hurdles here. Okay, so just keep Edge open. But what we're going to do now is go to the firewall. You just type firewall. And we're going to open Windows Defender Firewall with Advanced Security. Okay, and I'm going to give this a second to load up before we start crashing things. Okay, that should be good. We're going to go into Windows Defender Firewall properties, and we're going to want to turn off everything here. And we hit apply, and now our VM is completely vulnerable to the internet, and people should start being able to attack it. So what we're going to do now is create a SQL database. So you want to go into Edge and search up SQL Server evaluation. And we're going to want to download this exe. Open this. Download media. We're going to make an ISO. Download. All right, and I'll be back once this is done. Okay, so we got download successful. We're going to open the folder, and we're going to right click this and mount it. And then we can see this is here under our F drive. And then we're going to go into setup here and just execute this. Go into installation and new SQL Server standalone. Next here. Accept. Next. Next. We're going to want to check database engine services. Next. Okay, next again. Next again. And on this page, we're going to want to select mixed mode and put in a password. Could be the same password as before, just to make things simple. And then we're going to add current user. This is going to have the default SA account, username SA, with our password, along with our Windows VM also being an administrator. Next, and install this. And this will take a second, so I will be back when that's done. Okay, so there we are. Our SQL Server setup is complete. We're going to close this, just clear this up. Yes, and now we're going to go to SSMS. What this is SQL Server Management Studio, and gives us a way to view our SQL Server with a UI. You could theoretically do it through PowerShell, but it's a little bit difficult to understand. So for the purpose of this lab, this is better. So we're just going to want to download this and install it when it is ready. Okay, hit install. And we'll give that some time. Okay, so that was just completed. So we're going to run a restart this, and then just log back in through remote desktop connection. But we'll give it a couple minutes to load back up. Okay, so connect back into that. And what you can do from here is open up a event viewer. We'll just go through what this is. So we have Windows logs, security. This is all like the security stuff. Things like logging into Windows. It'll load up eventually, but point is all logs are here for the virtual machine. So let's open Edge, and I'll put this link in the description. Okay, so once you're at this link here, you're gonna want to scroll down and find this here. We're gonna just copy this. And what we're doing is go to the registry editor. What we're doing is essentially making the SQL Server send logs to our Windows event viewer, which we could then export to our log analytics and to our SIM. So you want to paste that link that directory we just copied here. That'll take you to the security. We're going to right click that, go to permissions, and we're going to add, and this thing is called network service. This whole process right here isn't really that intuitive, but just follow along. Apply that, okay. And then we're going to want to go back here, scroll down a little bit more, and copy this command, open our command prompt. And just run that here. Command was successfully executed. Okay, and then from there, let's go into our SSMS that we just installed, not to set up the actual app. We'll just give that a second to load up for the first time. Okay, so this is started up. We're going to go to SQL Server Authentication. We're going to log in with our SA account administrator. Just make sure you remember your passwords. Put Trust Server Certificate. And there we are. We're connected to our SQL database. We're going to want to right click this, go to Properties, Security. And for login and auditing, we're going to want to select both failed and successful logins so we can get all the logs for this. And disconnect. And we're going to try to reconnect here. Let's get this password wrong. Let's put the name Sal instead of SA. See our login failed. And we should be able to, if we go to our application logs in Event Viewer, see login failed for user Sal. This is a good thing. This means we set up everything correctly. Okay, so enough with our Windows VM. Let's just go ahead and ping our Linux VM. Now that that is all set up. So we're gonna want to copy the public IP for your Linux VM. Go to our command prompt, ping that, and it's pingable, which is great. And then we're gonna wanna SSH into it, which is essentially logging into our Linux. And the way you do that is SSH space the credential, the name of the user at the public IP. And we're gonna wanna say yes here. And you put in the password that you put into Azure. It's not gonna show up here, but rest assured it is typing. And you can see that we're in here right now. If I say something like ID, you can see this is a Linux command. So we'll just exit out of this now. And there we are. Okay, congrats. So we have set up our 2 virtual machines, our SQL database, made these NSGs vulnerable. And in the next part, we're gonna create our attack VM. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our attack VM. We're gonna go back into virtual machines. We're gonna put this in a new resource group. We'll call this attacker. Let's call it RG attacker. Let's call this attacker-VM. We'll make this a Windows. And same thing, let's make it lab user, just for simplicity. Select this, and let's go to networking. And make sure this is a new VNet. That's not the lab VNet. And we'll go ahead and review and create. And create. And we'll be back once that's fully deployed. Okay, so that's been fully deployed. I just realized now that I put it in East US. I wanted to put it in a different geographical location, just to emphasize that it was an attacker VM when we see it in the map, but not that big of an issue. So let's open a new remote desktop connection and connect to the public IP of the attacker VM. Log in with the lab user credentials that we just made. Say yes, and we'll give that a minute to load up. Okay, so just disable all this stuff, or not. And the first thing we're going to do is try to RDP from our attack VM into our Windows VM. So while this is loading up, let's go grab our Windows VM IP. Go back into the attack VM. It's fortunately not showing me my taskbar, so I'm just going to move it to the side. And we'll open up remote desktop connection. And paste the Windows VM here. And we're going to fail a couple of logins. Let's just use a unique name like Bobber, so that we're able to find it amongst the other people who are trying to log in. Credential did not work. Just do that a couple more times. Okay, cool. So that should have generated a couple logs for us to observe later. And Now let's go ahead and try to create some logs for our SQL server. And the way we're going to do that is installing SSMS, the same way we did on the Windows VM, but on our attacker VM, and try to connect. And it's the exact same process. So I'll just come back once that's set up and open. Okay, so this is set up, and let's open that up. Let's go ahead and copy our Windows VM. It probably is already copied, but not sure why is this like this, but we'll have to make do. And this is loading up. So for server name, we're going to put our Windows VM. We'll put SQL Server Authentication, and let's just get a couple incorrect logins. We can see this was at 11:02. So we'll just do that a couple times. And then let's just actually log in. Okay, cool. So we got that there. And now let's go generate some stuff for our Linux VM. Let's open normal PowerShell and do the same thing. So SSH bobber. And we'll say yes, even though bobber is not a real person. It'll ask us for the password. Let's just put in anything because it won't log in anyway. Okay, and there we go. Permission was denied. And we're essentially done with our attacker VM, so we can minimize out of this. Let's jump back into our normal Windows VM, and we could kind of observe some of the things that happened here. So let's start with our security. Okay, so we're back in our normal VM, still have the event viewer open, and we could see some of our logs here, like our security logs, which will show our RDP attempts. You could see a successful one here, and our failed one here. And if we scroll down, I know it's kind of hard to see, but we could see our bobber account failed from attacker VM. If we go to application, we can also see our SA failed. This was connecting to our Microsoft SQL Server. So if you can find these things, everything is working correct, and we did everything right. So let's jump out of our VMs and back to our normal desktop. We can put this back over here, and let's go into our command prompt. Say CLS to clear everything. And now what we're gonna do is SSH into our Linux VM to observe the logs, just like we did in the Windows VM. And you want to put your real password in here. Okay, there we are. And okay, so we go to cd /var/log, and what we're going to do is ls to list everything here, and all of our logs for authenticating are in auth log, so we can concatenate or cat auth log, and we see we get a bunch of stuff here, which kind of is a good way to show why a SIM or log aggregator is useful, because logs are just so confusing and they're coming from so many different places, and there's just too much information to make any sense out of it. So if we wanted to search for our specific things, we could say grep password, or cat auth log. And we could see all the people who were trying to connect actually. So we got a bunch of people trying to connect, even though we just created these not too long ago, which shows you how vulnerable a Linux machine without NSGs is, or with wide open NSGs. But we could see our 3 failed passwords with Bober, and then we were able to connect with lab user. And that wraps up this portion. Okay, so in this section, we're going to create our log analytics workspace and Microsoft Sentinel. So first thing you want to do is in the repository here, I have this GeoIP summarized CSV. Just download this file so that we could put it in. And what this essentially is like helps us create the map by correlating the IP addresses to locations in the world. So let's go into log analytics workspaces, and we're going to create a new one, and we'll just throw that in our RG lab, and we'll call this law RG lab for log analytics workspace, and we'll just create that and create. And we'll just give that a second. From there, we'll go to Microsoft Sentinel. Let's create a new one. And we'll select our log analytics workspace that we just created. Hopefully that's all deployed. Okay, cool. And now we're going to go to watch list. And we're going to add a new one. And this is where we're going to put that file that we just downloaded. And you want to make sure you call it GeoIP. If you don't call it this, this will not work. So local file CSV, we're going to put 0. And we are going to go to GeoIP summarized, open this. And you should be able to see here the network's correlating with locations in the preview, and you want to search by network. And let's go ahead and review and create that. Okay, so this should take 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe. We can see it says 1K. This is supposed to be 55K, so don't move on from this section until this is fully loaded in. But what we can do is go into log analytics workspaces and actually query it as it's loading up. So we'll go to logs here. And we're just going to want to query this. So run that. We can see some of it is loading up. We have like 4,000. Let's see if we could get a count. And to do that, you just put pipe and then count. And in KQL, you can highlight it and run it. So we got 6,000 so far. So yeah, just give that some time and then we will continue. Hey everyone, I'm back. It's been one night. So no doubt people have been trying to get into my VMs. So I might have more data than you if you're just continuing from the last video, but should be good regardless. So what we're going to do in this part is we see that our watch list has fully loaded in. So what we're going to do now is enable Microsoft Defender for Cloud. first place we want to go is environment settings. Okay, so we're gonna go down into this law RG lab, environment settings. Here in the defender plans, we are going to enable servers and SQL servers on machines. And for, oh, I forgot you have to save this. And then we go into data collection. And we want to hit all events so that we get all security events sent to Defender for cloud. Okay, and then we'll go back from here. Oh, save that again. Sorry, I literally just woke up, so bear with me. And now we'll go into our Azure subscription, how we were just here. And here we will check off a couple boxes. Like servers, we want databases, we want storage, and we want the key vault. Yes, okay, and okay, and then we're going to want to edit the configuration of this log analytics agent and just make sure that it goes to our lab, and we're storing all events. Okay, cool. Continue. And oh, make sure you save these things. Okay, and from this point, we're going to want to go back into our subscription, go to continuous export, and what we're going to do here is enable continuous exports. So this gets sent to our log analytics workspace, and we could query the data from there. So we're just going to want to select nothing in the event hub, but page is unresponsive. Computer is about to blow up. I think it's this recording software, but we push on. Okay, so we're just going to want to select all this stuff. Okay. We're going to do it to RG Lab, to Law RG Lab, and just save that. Okay, so in this next part, we're just going to enable some more logs. So storage accounts, let's go in there. Let's create a new account. And you want to make sure all this stuff is in the same region. So same region as our RG lab resource group. So let's just, this storage account name has to be something different. So I'm just going to say lab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's probably already in use. Only lowercase letters, okay. And then we'll say 4, 3, 2, 1. That is not in use. Okay, cool. And we'll go to next. Next. Actually, I think we can just create that. And create. Okay, then we're gonna go back to NSGs. And we're going to want to send some NSG traffic logs to our storage account. So we're going to go to NSG flow logs, create the flow log, and we're going to want to select target resource, both Linux and Windows VM. Otherwise, we're going to have to do this again. Okay, and make sure it goes to your storage account that you just made, and you can put retention as 0. And we're going to want version 2, just because it gives us more information. Enable traffic analytics, we'll do every 10 minutes. We're trying to get as much information as possible, so. Okay, and let's create that. Okay, now once that's complete, we're gonna go to log analytics workspace. You're gonna go to the agents tab, and we see 2 Windows computers connected. So these are connected via log analytics, but we want them to be in the Azure monitor. So we're going to set up some data collection rules. Let's create rule name. We'll just call this all VMs. Make sure this is an RG lab. East US, same region, or we want all. Go to resources. And we want to go into RG lab and select both our machines here. Not the attacker. And we'll go next. Let's just see what it said. Let's go next. Okay, so we're going to add a data source. Let's do Linux syslog. Okay, so you want to set a minimum as none, and the only thing we really want is this log auth. So we're just going to go ahead and hit none for everything else. Seems as though there's not a quicker way to do this, but it's fine. Would be quicker with a mouse, but I've run out of ports on my computer. Okay. None. Okay, and then we have log debug just for log auth. Don't know if you need to check this, but let's do it anyway. Add destination, Azure monitor logs, and you want to make sure put this in our log analytics workspace. We're going to add that data source, and now we're going to do Windows too. Windows event log. And here we want information and yep. Okay, next, add destination, and same thing as before. And just add data source. Okay, so we go ahead and review and create this. All right, and we'll jump back to log analytics workspaces. Go to agents, data collection rules, all VMs, data sources. And what we're doing here is just adding some custom ways to get stuff from the actual virtual machine. So we'll go back to the GitHub here, XPath. This will be for malware detection in the VM. Just paste that there, add. And Windows firewall tampering. Copy that and paste it here. And just make sure the destination is to the right place. Yup. Cool, save that. Okay, so I gave that a couple minutes, and this connected to our Azure monitor on both the Linux and Windows servers. So that's good, but it might still take a couple hours to be able to query this stuff. So let's just go to Log Analytics Workspace. Go to Logs. And this is where we can query stuff. This language is known as KQL. You can look it up on YouTube, do some more research on that. But these are some things that we could run. So for syslogs, for our Linux syslogs, oh, it's not syslogs, it's syslog. We can see some stuff starting to come in. Okay, cool. Let's see our Windows security events. There's probably going to be a lot more of these. Yep. Cool. And let's see, Azure Network CL. Azure Network Analytics _ CL. This might not work yet. Yeah. And it's not because I put the wrong thing. It's just it's going to take a couple hours for this to start showing up. This is for the network security groups. But that shouldn't matter for now. So I gave that some time. It's still not working, but let's just continue on. Right, so we're going into Entra ID. We're just going to generate some more logs here. Entra ID used to be Active Directory, but Microsoft changes things a lot. So what we're going to do here is go to we're going to go to diagnostic settings, and we're going to want to add these to audit logs and sign-in logs. So audit logs, sign-in logs, let's call this DS. We're going to want to send it to Log Analytics Workspace, make sure it's in the same place. And we'll save that. Okay, cool. We could check that it is in the Log Analytics Workspace. Go to logs. It won't return anything, but we'll be able to see that it does exist. So audit log. Oh, this one was audit logs. Okay, so there we go. It's saying no results. So it does actually have them. And what we're going to do from here is go into Entra ID, and we're going to make a new user. And we'll just call this test. Display name test. And just copy this password because we're going to need it. And we'll sign the stuff afterwards, so just create. Refresh this, so that will have created an audit log that we just created a new person. Go into test. We're going to go to assigned roles. We're going to add an assignment called global admin. This basically means they can do everything. This will create another audit log. There we go. And now what we're going to do is just open a incognito tab. Portal Azure. So you want to open up a notepad. Actually, we don't need a notepad. Why am I making things complicated? Just write the password right here. And we want to go back and grab test is user principal name. Put that in. I guess let's fail the password a couple times just to generate more logs. And then we'll add the actual one. And we could update the password. I actually don't know what that password is. Let me not. Not sure why this is being difficult. So copy this. It should be already copied, but you put that as a current password. Put in a password that you know. Sign in. Ask later. No. Okay, now we could go back here, go back to our log analytics. It might be too soon. Microsoft does seem to take a while. But let's query our sign-in logs. Still not showing up. Audit logs. So there we can see some audit logs. And you could just go through and analyze these logs. It'll help you, understand what kind of information is in here. And if you do a little bit more research about KQL, you can find certain things that you want to look up and query within these logs. But if that all shows up, great. Eventually the sign-in logs will show up too, but it just takes time. Okay, cool. So now in this part, let's go create some more logs at a subscription level. We'll go into monitor, activity log. We can see a bunch of stuff here. We're going to want to also send this to our log analytics workspace. Yeah, you actually want to be in here. We're going to go to export activity log. Add diagnostic setting. And we're just going to send all this stuff. To a log analytics workspace. So if you go here, we already have our DS Azure activity that sends all the subscription level logging to our log analytics workspace. So let's go ahead and query that. And go to logs. And the query is Azure activity, I believe. Yeah, there it is. I'll just run that. No results found in the last 24 hours. But let's say we go do an Azure activity, like create a resource group. And then delete it. And we go back to our log analytics. And query our Azure activity. It'll take some time to show up here, but if you want to take a look at it, give it some time and it will show up eventually. It's a little annoying that things are being slow, but if you just give it some time, you will be able to see the logs that I'm talking about. Now let's go ahead and create some resource level logs. So we'll do that through things like storage accounts and Key Vault. So we could go into our storage account that we already have created. And we'll scroll down to diagnostic settings. Diagnostic settings in monitoring. Let's just open a blob and we'll add this. And we'll just add audit. We'll just call this blob. And we'll send this to log analytics workspace. Make sure it's RG Lab. And just go ahead and save that. So now if we go into our storage account and go to containers, . And we'll just create a test container here. And this will show up in our logs now that we configured the diagnostic setting. And now let's go to key vault. Create a key vault. Put that in our RG lab. Just say test. Let's do vault access policy. We'll say me. Next. Why is this? Oh yeah, the name has to be completely unique. Wow, that's already in use. Okay, how about a 0? Okay, review and create. Okay, so that's creating. Go back to our key vault. Give this a second to show up. Okay, there we go. Deployment succeeded. We'll open up our test key vault and make ourselves a key. Let's generate a key. Actually, we're not going to make a key. We're going to make a secret. It's more simple. I'll just put this as test. Test secret. And just create that. Now that this is created, we can go into it, and just the act of showing the secret will trigger some logs. So let's go and query those. Logs. And same as before, this still might not be loading in. Fortunate. Let's see, storage, blob logs. It should return what we were just doing with creating it and destroying that resource group. Yeah, this shows us a lot, but this is good practice to go through this. So we can see here that we created a container and that there was success. And now to query the key vault, we can do Azure Diagnostics. And fingers crossed that this is loading in, but it has not. So we could either wait for that or just believe in the process. All right, congrats. Now we're gonna start making our well, first let's just see if this shows up. Nope, like I said, Microsoft takes time, but let's start creating our workspaces. So we'll go into Sentinel. And workbooks. And we're going to make 4 workbooks here, correlating with what I have here, these different maps. So let's add a workbook. go ahead and edit this. I think you could just remove these. All right. So just remove what was there, and we will add items, add a query, and we'll go to advanced editor for a JSON file. And we could go into the GitHub and just start going down the list. Let's start with Windows RDP auth fail. So we just go in here, copy raw file, select all this, and just paste. And done editing, and this should show up. There we go, cool. So we already have a bunch of stuff from Brazil, Zambia, Spain, all across the US. And yeah, the longer you leave this on, the more info we're gonna get, the more people are gonna try to attack. So I recommend that if you really want to flesh out your maps and create a pretty drastic difference when we create our after maps. But for now, let's save that. Should already be saved. Well, actually, no. And then we'll save this as, just copy the name here. And save it in the same resource group, RJLab, or glab. And we'll go back to workbooks, and we'll do the same thing for the next three. So edit. And just to reiterate, this will probably seem like a lot at once, but if you take my advice and run this lab a couple times, you'll build an intuition of where everything is, and that's very helpful. Okay, so we messed something up here. So just doing some troubleshooting on this. This is not showing up because it's not loaded in yet, but if it's been some time and it's still not working, you want to make sure that your flow logs version is version 2, because this gives it additional information that we could query, and that's what we're querying here. Okay, there we go. So now it works. And we're going to say done editing. Give that a name. And apply. And we have nothing here yet. Yeah, it'll just need some time for traffic to load in or people to attack it. But let's continue making our workbooks. Remove this and this. And our next map will be SQL authentication failure. So we copy this, go into our workbook, add query, advanced editor, where we can throw in our JSON file, and done editing, save that, copy this, RGLab, apply, and last one, redo our Linux SSH auth fail, copy that, edit our workbook, remove, add a query. Paste that in. And thankfully we're getting something here. We're getting some from Miami Beach and Australia, which is cool. But if I could copy this. Okay, cool. Now, you could let this stuff sit for a day, 24 hours, so you could get some more activity building up. While you're doing that, leave your VMs running so that they are accessible, so that there can be a more drastic difference. But for the lab purposes, I'm probably just going to continue. Okay, so let's go ahead and create some incidents. How we're going to do that is go to analytics here. Okay, so we'll go to import in the analytics and go ahead and import this file that's also on the GitHub. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about each of these, but you can go ahead and look into them if you would like, because this video is getting very long. So let's see what a brute force attempt looks like. So we'll just go over here, we'll edit so that we can view it. Okay, so we could go over here and see what query is run to return this incident. So for this one, it's just a security event. This is failed logon ID. Time generated greater than 60 minutes ago, and this just shows the count of all this information where failure is greater than or equal to 10. So if we test this now, we can see, when was this? Not sure if this was us or somebody else, but we could do this ourselves by failing to log into the, failing to RDP into our Windows machine. But you could do that if you would like. So this stuff will generate incidents. And we can see here we actually have some incidents. Possible privilege escalation, brute force attempt into the Linux. And this is also another brute force attempt into our Windows machine. And you can see, you go into full details here and kind of investigate these incidents. We can see at 8:55 a.m. somebody did try to go in. And it doesn't look like it was us. But yeah, you could kind of see, or it could have been us because it says attacker. Yeah. But you could look further into this if you desire. So like I said, don't have too many incidents here because I'm doing the fast version of this lab. If you want a fully fleshed out version of this lab, I'd recommend looking up Josh Madakor on YouTube and taking his cyber course. where you'll be able to see a lot more detail when it comes to this. But let's do some basic incident response. And the way I'm going to do that is go to our analytics, look at some of our rules, and patch the things that might be vulnerable. So for Azure Active Directory, there's nothing we could do for this right now, unless you wanted to put specific privileges on Active Directory. But let's go ahead and do for our Linux syslogs. Let's secure that. The way we could do that is going back to our network security groups. Into our Windows VM, well, let's start with Linux. And essentially, let's edit this dangerous rule by saying only my IP address can connect to this. And we could do the same thing to our Windows NSG. Make the source my IP address so that people can stop attempting to brute force this or RDP into it. And let's go back to Sentinel. And that would probably correlate to this Windows and Linux incident. So if you were doing this in the real world, obviously you would work with a more stringent, more precise incident response plan. But just kind of giving you a bare bones idea of what's going on. You would assign it to yourself, and let's say you remediated it. You would put closed, say why it's closed, and what you did. If it was true positive, it was suspicious activity. And you could say something like hardened NSGs. And this would be closed, and that'd be done with. So let's just continue hardening. Let's jump into our Windows VM and remediate some of the firewall incidents. So let's remote in. Okay, this is being super slow. But we just want to turn all these things back on. By the way, this is all after we've documented our stuff. So let me just show you what I mean by that first. If we go to our log analytics workspace and go back to the GitHub, I have a bunch of these queries here where you could throw in and get information. So let's say you were letting it run for 24 hours. You could gather some of these metrics to track it. This is the before hardening. And you could also take screenshots of your maps. And then you could run those same queries after hardening. So, and then you could measure like a percentage change difference. So let me just show you how to do that. Let's say you wanted to see the syslogs for the past 24 hours. Actually, let's do this because it might show up more. Go to logs. So let's see, in my original lab, I had 7,671. If I throw the query in, we get 3,623. And that's only because I haven't even been doing this lab for 24 hours. But if you let it run, I'm sure it'll be even more than 7,000. And yeah, you can run all those queries, track all those results, and harden it, and then run those queries again after 24 hours after it's been hardened to see that reduction and the percentage change in results. So yeah, recommend going back in here, going through some of these incidents, and trying to remediate them, implementing things. If you view full details, you can get some advice. If we go to Defender for Cloud, we can kind of get an idea of what our security posture is looking like. You want to improve that secure score by following some of the things that it'll tell us to do, like in these recommendations. So things like virtual networks should be protected by a firewall, and you can go through all these things. I'm not going to do it for this lab, but it'll tell you all this stuff. And it'll give you a list of things to do if you wanted extra practice. Another noteworthy tab is this regulatory compliance. And this is where you would go if you wanted to enable certain things like NIST 853. If your organization needs to be in compliance with this, or you want some practice, you would go in and manage compliance standards and add this. I'll show you how to do that. You would just go to subscription, edit settings. Go to security policies and search up NIST 800 and just turn it on. It should take about like 8 hours to fully load in. But once that's loaded in, you could see all the places where you're compliant or not compliant. And if you drop into this tab, you can see the specific places and even more specific places, and what you would have to do to become compliant with this. So that just about wraps up my demo of the lab. Like I said, I'd recommend going in and actually tracking these things so you could get something similar to this and maybe post a repository on GitHub. But at the end of the lab, you want to make sure that you clear everything up. I'll show you kind of how much it costs if you're paying as you go. It's like a couple dollars a day, but it can add up, especially if you forget to turn things off. You can go to cost analysis. And you can see I spent $41 this month. If I left everything on, it would be $120 for the month. So don't want to let that keep running. But to delete everything after you're done, you just want to go to resource groups, delete. And you want to do that for every single one. So all that is deleting. We go to Entra. Let's go to users. You could delete whatever users we made, like our test one. And let's go to diagnostic settings. Could delete this. Okay, that's gone. We go to Defender for Cloud. Go to environment settings. And we could see we have 7 of 12 plants here, so let's edit this. And basically just make sure everything is off. Off, 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 off. And we'll save that. Okay, so everything should be, make sure this is saved. And now everything has been deprovisioned, and you could run the lab again if you want. I'll just stick around and wait till you see everything clear and you just see Azure subscription here. I would also come back to this in like a week and see, or not a week, but like a couple days, and see if there's any cost building up to make sure that nothing is still racking up. But yeah, there's the lab. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment, and I'll talk to you soon.